My daughter put my suitcase on the front porch at 9:17 on a freezing Tuesday night. Then she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Mom, this isn't your home anymore." Her husband stood behind her with his arms crossed and a little smile on his face. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even pick up my suitcase. I simply reached into my handbag, took out my phone, and called one person. "Mr. Carter, it's Linda. I'm sorry to call this late, but I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow morning." My daughter rolled her eyes. "Who are you calling now?" I looked at the house behind her. The house I'd worked 2 jobs to buy. The house where I'd raised her. The house she'd apparently decided belonged to her. Then I smiled. "My lawyer." Her husband's smile disappeared. What happened the following morning changed our family forever. But before I tell you what was written on the document my lawyer brought over, you need to understand something. My daughter hadn't always been like this, and perhaps that was what hurt the most. If you enjoy stories about family, betrayal, consequences, and secrets that eventually come to light, subscribe to the channel, because what happened next taught me a lesson I wish I'd learned 20 years earlier. My name is Linda Harper. I'm 61 years old, and I have one daughter, Emily. Emily's father, David, died when she was only 8. One Friday morning, he kissed me goodbye, picked up his lunch, and left for work. By Sunday evening, I was a widow. A drunk driver crossed the center line. There was nothing the doctors could do. I remember sitting beside Emily's bed that night. She was asleep, hugging the stuffed rabbit David had bought her. I made her a promise she never heard. "You will never feel like you don't have enough because your father is gone." For the next 18 years, I tried to keep that promise. Sometimes I think I kept it too well. I worked during the day as an administrative assistant and did bookkeeping for 2 small businesses in the evenings. I missed dinners. I missed movies. I wore the same winter coat for 9 years, but Emily had braces. Emily went on school trips. Emily had dance lessons. When she turned 16, I bought her a used Honda. When she went to college, I helped with tuition so she wouldn't graduate buried in debt. And through all of it, we had our house, a 3-bedroom brick home on Maplewood Drive. It wasn't a mansion, but it was ours. David and I had bought it 5 years before he died. Every wall contained a memory. There were pencil marks inside the kitchen pantry, showing Emily's height from age 4 to 17. There was a small dent in the hallway from the Christmas when she got roller skates and ignored my rule about not wearing them indoors. There was a rosebush David planted in the backyard. When the mortgage was finally paid off, I sat alone at the kitchen table with the letter from the bank and cried. I thought, "I did it, David. The house was completely mine. No mortgage, no loans. And most importantly, as you'll understand later, the deed was in my name. Only my name." Emily was 28 when she introduced me to Jason. He was charming, almost too charming. He called me Mrs. Harper until I insisted on Linda. He brought flowers the first time he visited. He complimented my cooking. After dinner, he even stood up and helped me wash the dishes. I remember calling my sister afterward. "I think she found a good one." My sister wasn't convinced. "There is something about him I don't trust." I laughed. "You don't trust anybody." "I trust you," she said. Then she added, "And that's why I'm telling you to be careful." I should have listened. Emily and Jason married 11 months later. At first, everything seemed wonderful. But about a year into their marriage, they began having financial problems. Jason had left his job because, according to him, his manager didn't respect his potential. He started an online business, then another, then Another. None lasted very long. Their rent fell behind. One evening, Emily called me crying. Mom, I don't know what we're going to do. My mother instinct took over immediately. Come home. There was silence. What? You and Jason. Come stay with me until you're back on your feet. I thought it might be 6 months. Maybe a year. It became almost 4 years. And if you're listening right now thinking, Linda, don't do it, believe me. I wish I could go back and tell myself the same thing. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this is where the little warning signs started appearing, and I ignored every single one. At first, they were wonderful house guests. Emily bought groceries, Jason cut the grass. They offered to pay me rent. I refused. Save your money. That was my first mistake. Then Emily wanted to repaint her old bedroom. Of course. Then they wanted the larger guest room. Fine. Then Jason needed part of the garage for his business. Fine. Slowly, without me noticing, my home began becoming their home. My photographs disappeared from the living room. Emily replaced my curtains. Jason bought a huge television and mounted it on the wall without asking. One Saturday, I returned from grocery shopping and found my dining table in the garage. Emily? She came downstairs. Oh, we moved it. Why? Jason bought a new one. Yours was kind of outdated. That table had belonged to my mother. I stared at her. You could have asked me. Emily sighed. Mom, it's just furniture. Just furniture. That became her favorite phrase. Just curtains. Just paint. Just a table. Until one day it became, it's just a house. One evening, I woke around midnight because I wanted water. As I reached the hallway, I heard Jason talking downstairs. I stopped when I heard my name. How much do you think the place is worth? Emily answered. I don't know. Maybe 700,000? My stomach tightened. Jason lowered his voice. And she owns it completely? Yes. No mortgage? No? There was a pause. Then Jason said something I'll never forget. So basically, we're sitting on $750,000. We're? I stood frozen in the hallway. Emily said, It's Mom's house. For now. My hand tightened around the railing. Emily didn't answer. Jason continued. Eventually, it'll be yours anyway. You're her only child. I waited for my daughter to correct him. She didn't. Instead, she said, I know. I quietly returned to my bedroom. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Emily made pancakes. Jason smiled and asked whether I'd slept well. I smiled back. Perfectly. That was the morning I started paying attention. 2 months later, Emily walked into the kitchen holding a folder. Mom, can you sign something? What is it? Just some paperwork. I put down my coffee. What paperwork? Jason appeared almost immediately. It was as though he'd been waiting nearby. We're looking at refinancing options. I laughed. Refinancing what? The house. I stared at him. My house? Emily quickly interrupted. Mom, don't make it sound weird. We're just exploring options. Jason sat opposite me. The equity is sitting there doing nothing. It's keeping a roof over our heads. Yes, but financially, Linda, that's old-fashioned thinking. I pushed the folder back toward him. No. Emily looked embarrassed. You haven't even read it. I don't need to. Jason's jaw tightened. For the first time since I'd met him, the charming mask slipped. Only for a second. But I saw it. That evening, Emily barely spoke to me. 3 days later, she tried again. Mom, you don't trust us. This isn't about trust. Then what is it? I spent decades paying for this house. I'm not borrowing against it. She stood up. You always treat me like a child. I looked at her. Then stop asking your mother to risk her house to solve your husband's financial problems. She stormed out. That sentence changed everything. Suddenly, I was the problem. After that, the atmosphere became unbearable. If I watched television, it was too loud. If I cooked, the smell bothered Jason. If my sister visited, Emily complained we were invading their privacy inside my house. Then one Sunday, I found a brochure on the kitchen counter. Luxury retirement living. I actually laughed. Emily came in and saw me holding it. Oh, I wanted to talk to you about that. I bet you did. Mom, don't start. Start what? She sat beside me. You're 61. And? Wouldn't you like being around people your own age? I stared at her. I'm 61, Emily, not 91. They have activities. So does my television. She didn't laugh. Jason and I need space. That sentence hurt. I looked around the kitchen. You have 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, half my garage, most of my living room, and apparently my dining room too. How much more space do you need? She looked directly at me. The whole house. There it was. Finally. The truth. The following morning, I called Mr. Carter. He had handled some legal matters for me after David died. I explained everything. He asked me one question. Linda, have you signed anything concerning the ownership of your property? No. Added Emily to title? No. Transferred any ownership? No. Excellent. That word sounded strange. Excellent? Yes, and don't sign anything without speaking to me. I promised. Then I asked him to prepare updated estate documents. That afternoon, I made another decision. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't tell Jason. I simply waited. And they became bolder. The birthday dinner. My 61st birthday arrived in November. Emily said she wanted to cook dinner for me. For a moment, I thought perhaps things were improving. She bought a cake. She gave me a scarf. Jason even opened a bottle of sparkling cider. After dessert, Emily took my hand. Mom, we've been thinking. My stomach sank. Jason brought out another folder. Of course, always a folder. Emily smiled. We want to make things easier for everyone. Inside was paperwork relating to transferring an ownership interest in the house. I closed it. No. Her smile vanished. Mom? No. Why are you being so difficult? Because the answer is no. Jason leaned forward. You realize Emily will inherit this place anyway. Perhaps. He blinked. Perhaps? Emily looked at me. What does that mean? I took a bite of my birthday cake. It means nobody should plan their financial future around money belonging to someone who is still alive. Jason pushed his chair back. You know what your problem is? I looked at him. No, tell me. You like controlling Emily with money. Emily didn't defend me. Instead, she whispered, He's right. That hurt more than anything Jason could have said. I stood up. Thank you for dinner, and went upstairs. Behind me, I heard Jason say, She can't keep doing this. Then Emily answered, I'll handle her. Remember those words? Because 2 weeks later, she tried. It was Tuesday. I had spent the afternoon with my sister. When I returned home, there was a suitcase sitting beside the front door. My suitcase. I walked inside. Emily and Jason were waiting. What is this? Emily took a breath. Mom, we think you should stay with Aunt Carol for a while. I laughed because I genuinely thought I had misunderstood. Excuse me? This environment isn't healthy anymore. Jason added, Everybody needs space. I looked at him. You need space? He nodded. In my house. Emily snapped. Stop saying my house all the time. The room went silent. I looked at my daughter. What should I call it? Our home. No, Emily. It is your home because I allowed you to live here, but legally, it is my property. Her face turned red. See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Jason opened the door. Maybe you should leave before this gets uglier. I looked at my suitcase. Someone had packed my clothes. My own daughter had gone into my bedroom, opened my drawers, packed my belongings, and decided I no longer belonged in the home I'd spent half my life paying for. I felt something inside me break, but strangely, I didn't cry. I became calm. Very calm. I took out my phone. I called Mr. Carter. I'm sorry to call this late. I need you to do something for me tomorrow. Emily rolled her eyes. Who are you calling? My lawyer. Jason's expression changed. I picked up my suitcase. Emily folded her arms. So you're leaving? Yes. She looked almost victorious. Good. I stopped at the door. But Emily? What? You should probably avoid making any plans tomorrow. Why? I looked at Jason. Both of you should be here. Then I left, and if you're enjoying the story, subscribe now, because the next morning was the moment Emily and Jason discovered the difference between living in someone's house and owning it. At exactly 9:03 a.m., I returned. My sister drove me. Mr. Carter was already waiting outside. Emily opened the door. When she saw the three of us, she looked annoyed. What is this? I walked inside. Jason came downstairs. Mr. Carter introduced himself. Jason immediately became defensive. Why is a lawyer here? Mr. Carter remained completely calm. Mrs. Harper asked me to clarify several matters concerning her property. Jason laughed nervously. What matters? Mr. Carter opened his briefcase. First, ownership. He placed a copy of the deed on the table. Emily stared at it. The property is owned solely by Linda Harper. Jason crossed his arms. We know that. Good, Mr. Carter said. Then there should be no confusion. Emily looked at me. What are you doing? I answered calmly. Taking my house back. Her mouth fell open. You can't kick us out? The irony was almost impressive. Less than 12 hours earlier, she'd put my suitcase outside. Now she was outraged by the idea that she might have to leave. Mom, we're family. I stared at her. So was I last night. She went silent. Jason stepped toward Mr. Carter. We've lived here for years. We have rights. Mr. Carter nodded. You may have certain occupancy rights, which is precisely why Mrs. Harper is proceeding through the proper legal process, rather than throwing your belongings onto the porch. Jason looked at me. You planned this? No. I shook my head. You planned this. I simply protected myself. Emily started crying. Real tears. Mom, where are we supposed to go? I almost gave in. That old instinct returned immediately. Protect her, fix it, make everything okay. Then I remembered standing on my porch beside my suitcase. I remembered, this isn't your home anymore. I looked at her. You're 34 years old, Emily. Jason is 37. You both work. You'll figure it out. Jason suddenly laughed. This is ridiculous. Emily's going to own this house eventually anyway. Mr. Carter looked at me. I looked back at him. He knew exactly what I was thinking. I said, Would you like to tell them the other thing? Emily stopped crying. What other thing? Mr. Carter pulled out another document. And for the first time that morning, Jason looked genuinely frightened. The will 3 months earlier, after overhearing them discussing the value of my house, I had changed my will. Emily would still receive some personal belongings and a modest amount of savings. But the house? It was no longer going directly to her. My will instructed that after my death, the property would be sold. Part of the proceeds would go into an education trust for any future grandchildren. Another portion would go to a charity David had supported. Emily stared at me. You removed me? I changed my plans. Because of Jason? No. I looked directly at her. Because of you. Her face crumpled. Jason turned toward her. You told me the house was guaranteed. The room went completely silent. Emily slowly looked at him. What? He realized his mistake immediately, but it was too late. You told me? He stammered. You said you married me because of my mother's house? No, that's not what I meant. But something had changed in Emily's expression. For the first time, she was looking at her husband the way I'd been looking at him for months. And then my sister spoke. Ask him about the loan. Jason went pale. I turned around. What loan? Emily looked confused. What is she talking about? My sister took out her phone. I didn't tell you earlier because I wanted proof. She showed us screenshots. Jason had apparently been telling people that he and Emily were about to become owners of a mortgage-free property. He'd even tried to use the expected inheritance to convince someone to invest money in one of his businesses. Emily looked sick. You told people my mother was dying? Jason shook his head. I didn't say dying. My sister enlarged one message. I read it. Linda's getting older. The property will eventually be ours. I handed the phone back. I didn't need to read another word. I expected Emily to defend him. She didn't. She walked upstairs. 20 minutes later, she came back carrying a bag. Jason looked at her. What are you doing? Leaving. Emily... No. She pointed toward the door. You convinced me my mother was controlling me because she wouldn't give us her house. I never... You did. She started crying again. But I let you. Then she looked at me. And that's worse. I wanted to hug her. But I didn't. Not yet. Some apologies shouldn't erase consequences immediately. She left with a friend. Jason moved out several weeks later after the proper arrangements were made. Their marriage didn't survive. But this story isn't about me winning a house from my daughter. The house was always mine. It's about something much harder. Learning that helping someone and enabling someone are not the same thing. And if this story reminds you of someone who keeps giving and giving until people begin treating their kindness like an obligation, subscribe to the channel. These stories aren't only about revenge. Sometimes they're about finally learning where love ends and self-respect begins. One Saturday morning, someone knocked on my door. It was Emily. She was holding something. The old wooden dining table. My mother's table. She'd had it restored. I found it in Jason's storage unit, she said. I ran my hand across the wood. It's beautiful, she nodded. Then she started crying. I'm sorry, Mom. This time there were no excuses, no blaming Jason, no explanations. I let him convince me that, because I'd eventually inherit something, it already belonged to me. I listened. You gave me everything when I was growing up, she continued. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing those things as gifts. She wiped her eyes. I started seeing them as things you owed me. That sentence mattered more to me than 100 apologies. I hugged her. But I didn't give her the house. And I didn't change my will back, at least not then. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending something never happened. Trust can return, but it should return slowly. 2 years later. Emily lives about 15 minutes away now. She rents a small apartment, she has a good job, she pays her own bills, and every Sunday, she comes over for coffee. Sometimes we sit at my mother's old dining table. The same table she once called outdated. There's one more thing. Last month, Emily helped me repaint the hallway. When we moved a cabinet, we discovered the pencil marks I'd made when she was growing up. Emily, age 8, Emily, age 11, Emily. age 15. She touched the marks. You kept these? Of course. She stood quietly for a moment. Then she said, I almost lost all of this. I shook my head. No, sweetheart. She looked at me. You almost lost me. She hugged me. And for the first time in years, she felt like my daughter again. The house is still in my name, but these days, nobody asks me when I'm going to give it away. And that may be the most valuable thing I got back. Not my property. My dignity. So tell me in the comments, if your adult child packed your suitcase and told you to leave a house that you owned, would you forgive them? Would you let them move back in? Or would that be the moment you finally said, enough is enough? And if you stayed until the end, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We share stories about family secrets, betrayal, difficult choices, and the moments when ordinary people finally decide to stand up for themselves. Because sometimes the people who mistake your kindness for weakness don't understand what they've done until you stop being kind at your own expense.